Too much is never enough. Cleaner is meaner. Race fans never die. And some real riders do it the old-fashioned way. Words have many meanings. Words like power. There's political power, computing power, power tools and power lunches. We run power lines, try to empower our employees, and exercise power of attorney. But then comes raw power. And while most of us take for granted the words we use, some of us know how to take command of the language. Rodders know how to get the most of the language with words like tradition, style, innovation, and especially power. Hello everyone and welcome to this issue of Rod. I'm Jeff Probst. Thanks to all of our subscribers out there. It's great to have you with us. And if this is your first issue of Rod, well then hang on, because Volume 2 is definitely going to set you back in your seat. Well, for the past few years, there's been a noticeable growth not only in street rodding, but in a sport that combines tradition, performance, and power and takes them to their limit. I'm talking about nostalgia drag racing, the heart, if not the soul, of street rodding. If the smell of nitro and the sound of a supercharged V8 is heaven for street rodders, then a nostalgia drag racing event could only be described as heaven on earth, or at least heaven on asphalt. An event like the Good Guys 5th Fall Classic held at Sears Point Raceway this last October is just what the heritage of hot rodding is all about. The final race of the Vintage Racing Association's tour, this event boasted a rod and custom show and shine with 280 cars, exhibition passes by some of the legends, and some of the hottest drag racing action with over 300 race cars participating. All in all, a weekend of wild rides and fast times.
We've been out there planting seeds and pioneering this effort for, like I say, 5 years. The movement's been going on for about 10, and just now we're seeing tremendous growth in our classes. The A-gas coupes, the top fuel cars, the junior fuel cars, the guys who want to run altereds, real quick street rods. All those things are really blossoming now, and guys are really into building them. They're into building them that look good, that perform good, and that are safe, and that they can have fun with. And that's really the key.
This year, the VRA established the popular Nostalgia Eliminator class for nitro and alcohol cars which didn't qualify for top fuel, as well as exhibition cars just looking for some heads-up racing. Now, older racers can relive an era gone by, and a new generation of racers and rodders can enjoy the thrill of drag racing.
Many years ago, in the early 70s, the sport of drag racing went from a hot rod activity into a professional activity. And, you know, the guys that didn't have a lot of money or high dollar sponsors or had to work 60 hours a week and didn't have a lot of time was basically driven out of the sport or relegated to bracket racing, which once you race heads up and you race nitro cars, you never want to do anything else. Ken and I have known each other for about 25 years. We all grew up in South San Francisco, which at one time and still is a hotbed of hot rodding. Andy Brizio came from there, Jim McLennan, Ted Gatelli, Charlie DePucci, the famous IndyCar mechanic. And we all, as kids, we all hung around these guys' speed shops, and they kind of took us under their wings and, you know, took us to the races and showed us what to do, and you know, we grew up around it. It is some way our heritage. In the old days, you used to get 3 guys together and get a partnership and go out and race. And that's what's going on now again, is, you know, people are getting together, you know, one guy will build the chassis like I did, Ken built the motor, and we have another partner that helped us a little bit financially, and man, we just sat in the garage and did it. You know, I mean, the saying goes, just do it. We just did it.
Here about 8 years ago, Roy Brizio and my oldest son, Bob, said, Jim, they're having a nostalgia race at Fremont. Why don't you go? And I said, nah. I said, if we had a car, maybe then I'd go, but I just don't feel like going. Well, unbeknownst to me, they had already built a replica of the original Champion Speed Shop dragster. It was exactly the same, and Sammy Hale was going to drive it again. So we went to Fremont. I think our first time out with the car, we went 150, and that was plenty good enough for me. But my son wasn't satisfied with that. He had to go faster. We have a twin-engine car that was the original twin-engine car at Champion Speed Shop. I built that in 1960, I believe. And we have the top fuel car, which we're running now, and we also have just started a junior fuel car that belongs to Tom Homer and his campaigner, and doing very well with it. But it's a great feeling to have your children continuing on and have the fun in nostalgia drag racing that I used to have years ago. It's just great. It's a family affair. All the family comes on. We all laugh and giggle and have a lot of fun.
There's no question drag racing grew out of the street racing of the 50s. The racing needs of these early street riders created the sport of drag racing that we know today. And now nostalgia drag racing is growing out of the new explosion in street riding. But the key word here is definitely nostalgia.
And really that's what everybody's doing here today. They're reliving that nostalgic area, or that nostalgia era that was fun for them back in whatever era it was when they grew up. Myself, it was the old days down at the Bakersfield drag strip back in the 50s, going down to the Fuel and Gas Championships. I mean, all the heroes were there that you read about in the magazines, and boy, you had to be there to watch them. It was great. And that's what we're trying to recreate here. The nostalgia era thing, like I say, is just, it's catching on like wildfire now. What we're seeing here, this is our 5th annual event, Fall Classic, and our field has probably tripled from when we started 5 years ago. We've probably got 300, 320 cars racing here today.
There is always competition, but like street riding, nostalgia drag racing is a place to enjoy the cars, history, and people. This is where you'll see some of the old legends like Rich Gosco's Pure Hell Fuel Altered, and Eric Perry's blown alky burning 37 Fiat blast down the track.
As drag racers, we are hot rodders too. And you know, this is the way we express ourselves, and this is the way we take it to the limit. The work that goes into these things and the dedication of the people in this sport is unbelievable. That, you know, this is what this country is about that way, is getting out and doing something and trying to be the best you are, and just taking it to the limit. And that's, you know, that's what we're out here. We're taking it to the limit and trying to kick the door down.
In the exhibition runs, the Mooney Ham and Sharp A Fueler brought the crowd to their feet with spectacular full-pass burnouts, lifting the front wheels at half track and carrying them across the traps at top end. Hollywood George Tours put on a great show with his flame-throwing, wheel-standing 55 Chevy Nomad. And And speaking of wheel stands, there were plenty in the fastest streetcar exhibition runs where Rick Dyers and Bruce Kimmons put on a great show. Both Camaros launched to 8-second passes both days. Sunday was a day to remember. The sound of nitro exploding, the smell of new paint, and the sight of some cool rods and customs. If you're into extra sensory overload, there's nothing quite like a nostalgia drag racing event, and the Good Guys' 5th Fall Classic was no exception. When the smoke cleared, everyone involved said it was a weekend to remember. Nostalgia drag racing is enjoying some much-deserved popularity, and with some real diehards behind it, it looks like a tradition that's going to be around for quite a while. Now, one of those diehards is a street rodder who seems to have at least his right foot planted firmly in nostalgia drag racing's past. As senior editor of Rod and Custom magazine, Pat Ganal has had the opportunity to just about see it all.
Nostalgia drag racing was basically started by Tom Proofer and Brian Burnett up at Fremont Raceway when they just got a bunch of their Bay Area buddies together, and Proofer had top fuel cars back in the halcyon days of the early to mid '60s, and they said, well, let's just get some of these old parts, these obsolete parts, put them together and get our street rods out and have the track for a weekend and just have some fun, smoke some tires. And we were standing there at the fence watching top fuelers go by, and Gene says, if I was going to build one of my own cars, you know what it would be? And I'd build that little junior fuel car of mine. And you know what? He says, I think I could beat these guys with it. And I said, Gene, if you put the motor together, and if you can get Don Enriquez to drive it, I'll build the car. I mean, Gene Adams was my hero. If you'd have told me that 25 or 30 years later, I'd be partners with him in a race car, it had stock rockers, stock rocker pedestals, it had a flat tappet cam, it had an old set of Anson rods, it had a totally stock crank, the block was stock, McRae did the heads on it, it had a set of Hillborn injector. I mean, it was just, single pump, totally, the exact same thing he ran back in the 60s. And we got Enriquez to drive it. He hadn't driven a dragster in 10 years. We went up to Fremont, unloaded it off the trailer, and ran 730 at 205 miles an hour, which is exactly what it ran, 25 years ago. Don drove the whole weekend and didn't cut a light slower than 440 reaction time. And we almost won the meet. But it was just, fun to put that combination back together and put those guys back together. I remember after that first run, we drove down in the pickup, and Don was getting out of the car, and Gene went over and shook his hand, and I took a picture of it. I mean, it was just like, Tom Teros, who used to work with Ike Iacono, inherited Ike Iacono's dragster. I think he had it for 27 years. So he got it would have been the early 60s, and he put a small block Chevy in it, and he was running it out. I got him to come out to these nostalgia races because he didn't have anywhere to run it anymore. And I said, Tom, bring the car up to Fremont and put your nitro in it and go. And he was running this thing almost 200 miles an hour in this car that was built in 1950. And I kept telling him, I says, Tom, you just want to go fast. That car should be restored. It's the most historic six-cylinder car of all time. And I've, not necessarily by choice, but because of this 48 Chevy, I've always been into sixes. And so, you know, I'd love to have had that car. So I told Tom, I said, Tom, anytime you want to trade cars, this is when I had the Adams and Enriquez top fuel car, I said, anytime you want to trade cars, I'll trade you straight across, less engines. And I kept working on him, and he kept, you know, So finally I said, called him up and I said, Tom, we're going to our last race. If you want, because he loved my car. He really liked it. He used to come over and look at it, and I said, well, you come over and you sit in it, you try it out, and if you want to trade, we'll trade. So that's what we ended up doing. And another partner of his bought the engine from Gene. And so that's how I ended up getting the Ike Iacono Dragster. I'm restoring it back to the way it was in 1959 on the cover of Hot Rod magazine. So at this point, we've massaged the aluminum. I've collected all the parts I need for it. I had to get a quick change rear end and a Cad LaSalle transmission. And I now have the engine mocked up in it. This is a new old stock GMC engine that I was able to get from Pat Dykes. And this is Iacono's original Wayne 12-port head. It's the one that he had on the car. And those are his injectors that he ran on the car. And I don't know if you can see this little water neck up at the front. That is an actual piece from his engine. I've got his original camshaft that goes in it, and we're going to try and keep it as original as possible. One of the reasons I'm building this is because it goes slow enough for me to drive. This one is not, this is my speed. And, you know, once it gets finished, I have no idea what sort of racing I'll be able to do with it, but basically I'm going to run it on the track for fun. I don't care if I, you know, can't race anybody else, I'll just drive it up and down the track.
Pat Ganal is another great example of what nostalgia is all about. His total commitment to the Ike Iacono Dragster project is not unusual when it comes to the nostalgia drag racing gang. And we haven't heard the last from Pat. He'll be in our next issue of Rod with a full profile of his history in street rodding. Well, there's one very common thread that ties nostalgia racers and street rodders together: power. And now it's time to take a look at a serious hot rod. And finding a feature car that's a real standout from the hundreds of fine rods we have to choose from is no easy task. But since power seems to be the theme of this issue, well, we really didn't have much choice. See if this doesn't give new meaning to the word power. When a car is created from the owner's vision, it reflects their taste, their style. It's clear Tom Wold's vision was pure hot rod. Smooth, black, traditional lines define this mean 34 Ford. And this Pro Street Highboy has the power to back up its impressive look. Tom was involved in all aspects of construction. He completed the 18-month project with the help of friends Don Gallagher and Jerry Casper. The Bad Coupe sits on a custom-built TCI chassis and a 4-link suspension with coil-over shocks. A 4-inch drop TCI front axle gives it the right rake, and Willwood four-wheel discs provide the braking force. The 34 steamroller stance comes from the 33 22x15 Mickey Thompsons mounted on polished 15x15 Halibrands. Up front, 14x6s keep this missile guided. Power is what this machine is all about, and the BDS blown 496 cubic inch Chevrolet prepared by Ewing Engine Service delivers plenty. It's loaded with goodies like Aries pistons, Childs and Albert rods, a Crowler crank, a Milodon gear drive, and a Crane cam. Fire comes from an MSD 7AL ignition. A Turbo 400 with 3,500 RPM stall converter transfers the power to a narrowed Halibrand quick change rear end. Inside and out, attention to detail was paramount. The Downs body was massaged and painted by Dan Pritchard, and Terry Lee stitched the tweed interior. Even though the project was only completed recently, Tom's craftsmanship has already been recognized. The awards include a Good Guys Badge to the Bone, Vinteeks Nationals Top 15, and the Best of Show at Super Chevy Sunday in Seattle. Thanks, Tom, for letting us feature this fine rod. Well, I think you'd have to agree Tom's car gives new meaning to the word power, and that saw is no slouch either. With computer-controlled accuracy, its laser sight guides the 9-foot water-cooled blade through even the most solid of stones. And with a 47-inch cutting depth, this is a chopper's dream. Well, no matter how much power we build into our favorite projects, it's still no match for the power of our state and local governments. We have to comply with all kinds of rules and regulations, and as hot rodders, we all know how frustrating this can be. But sometimes you can obey the laws of the land without compromising the smooth look of your rod.
We rodders do countless hours of shaving, filling, and Frenching to our cars to satisfy our individual tastes. In fact, a lot of hot rodders go as far to personalize something on all street rods, the license plate. To get the ultimate smooth, sanitary look would be to lose the plate altogether. But the local police might have something to say about that. With his Retract-A-Plate kit, Dan Fink Metalworks gives us a way to give our rods that clean look and keep them legal to drive. The Retract-A-Plate kit comes with everything you need for most applications and is designed by a street rodder so you can install it where you want it, usually front or rear, and use it whichever way you like, either automatic or manually. We located the desired area for our assembly, checking to see if the operation of the unit would be unobstructed. We then measured to make sure the plate would be level and visible while leaving sufficient ground clearance in the lowered position. The kit comes with universal mounting brackets, but in the case of our Pro Street Bel Air, we needed to fabricate our own bracket to move the assembly where we wanted it. Remember, if a custom bracket must be made either by you or your local rod shop, the rule of thumb is to measure twice and weld once. We then drilled holes to mount our bracket, then secured the bracket to the frame and the Retract-A-Plate unit to the bracket. Then routed the vacuum line from the vacuum motors to the front of the car, securing it to the frame to keep the hose from rubbing through on the frame rails and burning on the exhaust. We then tapped into an existing vacuum line with a T and routed the vacuum supply line down behind the engine. With so many hours spent smoothing the firewall, we felt it necessary to mount the reservoir under the car to keep the firewall looking clean. We routed the wires for the solenoid and the switch after soldering all electrical connections and protecting them with heat shrink tubing. Keep in mind that the light in the switch and the solenoid draw slightly more amperage than an electric clock. So if the car is going to sit for extended periods of time, be sure to disconnect the battery. We set up our kit on the 55 so it would operate automatically, and our billet plate frame has its own light, so we elected not to use the one in the kit. With a small investment in time and money, we feel Dan's kit can dramatically change the look of almost any street rod. Don't you think so?
That retractable license plate frame is still one of my favorites. Now don't forget, if you have an idea or question you'd like to see covered in ROD, just write or fax the producers at ROD. We value your ideas and opinions and always like to hear from you. Well, it's time now for something new here at ROD. We're very excited to have added a respected member of the automotive press to our staff here at ROD. Dean Olson will be featured in our new regular segment, The Editor's Desk, in which Dean will be asked to share his views on topics close to all of us in street rodding. So with that, let's take time out for a visit to The Editor's Desk.
Hi, I'm Dean Olson. This is The Editor's Desk. Today's subject is the resurgence of nostalgia drag racing. Now, nostalgia drag racing is making a big comeback. I mean, you just ask my brother. He goes nuts over this stuff. I have some stats here that are going to blow your mind. You know, my brother is absolutely nuts. He's, my brother wears Birkenstock shoes. Oh, they formed in my foot, he tells me, Yeah, well, so does manure if you let it dry. In fact, it would look better. Sure, put a buckle on it. Call it crap in his strap. Yeah, he's also got the spikes, and the earring in his nose, black leather, and then I can't find a job. Geez, can't imagine why, snake meat. The spikes look ridiculous, but upside down, he's a garden weasel. Don't breathe in then, He's always hanging out at these heavy metal rock clubs, and it's ridiculous. He makes me go with him once. These people come up to me, it's like, hey, what up? I never know what to say. Keep on trucking. He sees a woman he likes, he goes nuts, Like to talk to that girl over there, but I never know what to say. I tell him, use the old trick all guys use, like you know her from somewhere. He goes, good idea. Grandma? No clue. Heavy metal. He's always have you noticed the names of rock bands are just getting weirder all the time? He's got this new CD of this band out called Angry Candy. What the hell's Angry Candy? He's like, I'm a jujube and I'm pissed off. Jeez. Eh? Well, we're out of time. So that was my topic this week. It's the resurgence of nostalgia drag racing and what pisses me off about my brother. This is The Editor's Desk.
Well, I know you'll all be looking forward to the many insights Dean will be bringing to each show. His knowledge of the automotive industry is almost staggering sometimes. Well, for the most part, street rodding happens locally, in garages, small shops, drive-ins, and diners, with clubs meeting all across the country. And while there's nothing quite like making it to a big national event, great times can be had in a small car club or gathering.
Hi, Jerry Cronkite speaking to you from the Highway 101 Diner in Sequim, Washington. People come here every Saturday morning with their rods, their classics, share, tell stories, do a little bit of lying. Come by and see us sometime.
I've got a 1933 Ford two-door sedan. It's got a ZZ3, 1993 ZZ3 in it, 350 turbo. It's got a Ford rear end, disc brakes in the front, typical street rod. The primary reason I belong to a club like the Dream Machine is because they put out minutes and they give us information on what's going on in street rod activity.
The reason I like the Dream Machines is because, it gets my husband and I together. We have a lot of friends that are in there too.
Personally, myself, I have a 51 Ford pickup that's been in the family since it was nearly new. I've been a member of Peninsula Dream Machines for a little over a year. Probably the first social event that I've ever been involved in. And that's orientated to automobiles, not only classics but street rods. We lean a little more towards the 50s theme. The women have poodle skirts and stuff. Most of our cars are out of the 30s to the 50s.
We're building a 40 Ford street rod, and then we have a 35 Ford that we're going to put away for future work. And then we have the 48 Ford convertible out in front here. I've got a 33 Ford Victoria, and I don't really belong to a club, but I just kind of hang out with the guys because I've always liked old cars of all sorts. And I sold a big block vet and bought the Vicky because it makes a lot more sense. It's a sedan and there's room to grow in it. Sometimes we get a lead on cars for sale, different places that I go to a lot of swap meets, and my wife always goes with me, so we kind of transfer information back and forth. But, even today, I've just heard about cars that all of a sudden were for sale last week that I didn't know about. So we kind of like to trade that kind of information back and forth. It really helps out when in a small community like this. Some people get around, some don't. So.
I own a 1946 two-door. We recently returned from a trip to England where we attended the 3rd annual National Street Rod Association meet in Nebworth.
They got some nice cars over there. The only thing is they drive on the wrong side.
My name's Fred Gilchrist, and I happen to be this year the president of the Squid Valley Car Club. I came in a 32 Franklin Club sedan, which is a one-off body modified by Bowman and Schwartz, which is one of my favorite automobiles because it has a roof. We're purists in the VMCCA. We don't have rods. Our cars are unmodified as they came out of the factory. But we get along with the rod people real well and admire some of their workmanship, which we think is really outstanding.
I came along today for the event down here, the get-together at the restaurant. I do drive this 32 Roadster that's parked outside, and it has a small block shed in it with early Ford running gear, dropped axle. I did join up with the early Ford V8 Club back about 1967, and also a member of the National Street Rod Association. And it's just kind of fun to get together like what we're doing right here today. The benefits for all of us would be inviting most of the camaraderie and just getting together and being able to know who's doing what and what parts and pieces are available. We're the best organized, unorganized club.
Well, diners have always played a big part in bringing street rodders together, but nothing brings street rodders together quite like rod shops and garages all across the country and around the world. Let's meet Gary Sutherland, a very talented builder from Australia, and see what's in the works at Gaz and Associates.
And I'm very pro-American. Maybe I have a right to be because I'm still an immigrant. I'm a first generation, so I should be pro-American. And everyone else should be. People lose their patriotism. They should have more patriotism. But I love Winchesters, the American guns. Winchesters and Colts. I collect Winchesters and Colts, only American type guns. I got original Elvis stuff, original John Wayne, Roy Rogers, Marilyn Monroe, original autographs. Certain people are intrigued with certain things, you know. I love John Wayne. It's not a very vast collection, of course, but it's all American, very on the Western theme. I like Russells and Remingtons, Russell Art. I've got some Russell Art, of course, and Remington bronzes. I really enjoy that sort of stuff, Americana stuff. The reason I came to America is that America is the centre of hot rodding in the world. Back in Australia, where I come from, cars are very big. The economy here is a lot better for hot rodding, parts availability, regulations in this country, excuse me, are so much better than other places in the world. They're being regulated structurally, environmentally, and the availability of cars here, of course. Building cars is very rewarding. You'd probably make more money
going into structural engineering or something like that, or working as an engineer for Boeing or something like that. I don't think it's a monetary thing. Once your kids have all grown up and raised, your priority is not money, it's job satisfaction and quality of life. If you enjoy what you do, that's a big priority. Keeps you young, keeps you happy. And it's the people you deal with too. Your customers make it. I enjoy working in everyone's car. In this business, it's one of the few businesses you get to deal with the people at their best. It's their hobby, they're at a high, they're having a good time. And it's a great compliment to work on celebrities' cars. We work on some people from the Mariners, and Randy Johnson, the pitcher from the Mariners, who's a very famous pitcher. But it's also wonderful to work on just normal working people's cars. They have the same high, they have the same gratitude, and you get paid for it. And they're grateful for you to work on their cars. I don't actually build cars for people, I'm just a tool. They build the car, they come to me and say that they want a car built, whether it be a $5,000 job or a $50,000 job. It's their money, they build the car, I'm just a tool. They come to us and they have an idea of what they want built, so I have an artist draw up an artist concept, and we present 20 or 30 sketches, different color combinations. Like the big pink truck we did right now, I wanted to paint the big pink truck black. And the lady said to me, if I want to pay half the cost of the truck, I can paint it black. So the truck got painted pink. You have to realise it belongs to a lady, and it turned out very nice. Everyone liked it. I would have wanted black. But we just built a car for a gentleman that was missing his arms. A little bit more difficult because the steering wheel is on the floor and everything's electronic. The gentleman has no arms, so the doors are all electronic. You have to facilitate towards whether it be a handicap. It's a learning experience. Every car we do is different. It's a learning experience for us. Every day we learn something. We just finished a 56 Ford Victoria for a guy, which is unusual because not many, they don't do that many Fords. Most people do Chevys. 460 Ford, recessed the firewall, put a Mustang 2 front in it. A very nice little car. At the start I was a bit hesitant putting a big block Ford in it, but it worked really well. We've got a couple of glass 33 Downs cabriolets going with TCI. We use a lot of TCI frames. We used to build our own frames, jig them up and do all that. I think it's a bit more economical to buy them straight from Just a Hobby or TCI right now. We've also got a couple of 55 Chevys, small blocks, big blocks, conversions going on. Try to diversify a little bit. We've always been into motorcycles. I noticed the latest craze in the magazines for Harleys, but we've had Harleys in this shop since day one. I personally like Indian motorcycles. I've got 3 Indian motorcycles, early Indians. I'm a great fan of Indian motorcycles, and I'm a great Cadillac fan too, of course. We're doing a 51 Buick Custom, which is the latest craze, 51 Buicks. We do most everything in-house. The only things we don't do in-house, we don't do our upholstery, we don't do our chrome. We have our own paint shop, which is a separate building. We do our own glass in-house. Ken found this vintage machine. It's from the 40s, very unique. As you can see, you can go from everything from a Tucker through Kaiser, through all your Fords. Every car from 1904 through the mid-50s. It makes it so much simpler than trying to cut a template and fit it to the car. We just take a piece of glass, place it on the template, and trace it out and cut it. To build this machine today, the price would be astronomical. We've had a run of Mustang 2s, front ends. We make more money out of Mustang 2s, doing clips, engine transplants. Mustang 2 is the best invention since canned beer, so, as far as under street rods, economical type thing. And you still have your independent, your heights and your TCI front ends and all that, and they're very nice, they're wonderful. But you talk $2,000 to $2,500 for a front end. For a Mustang 2, a low dollar guy can do it for $600 to $700, $800, and it works out really good. And you still have to consider your people, the economics of. You still have to consider that not everyone can afford a lot of money for the car. And why should those people be isolated from the hobby
because they are not in the upper echelons of money. It should be a hobby for everyone. It should be an affordable hobby for young people and people of my age who can afford it.
Now, although Gary was born in Australia, I think at this point it's safe to call him an American original, just like the beautiful cars produced by Gaz and Associates. Well, no definition of the words drag racing would be complete without including the phrase American original. And while this may just about say it all, I think there's still a little more to be said with our next music video.
This is the way we express ourselves. This is the way we take it to the limit, the limit. We're taking it to the limit and trying to kick the door down. And, you know, the saying goes, just do it. We just did it. We just did it. We just did it. And it's turned into
noise in the background, noise in the background, noise in the background.
Once you race heads up and you race nitro cars, you never want to do anything else. We say we're serious about it, but this is for the competition. You know, we say we're serious about it, but this is for fun. You know, we say we're serious about it, but this is for once you race, it's catching on like wildfire. You never want to do anything else. This is no secrets out here. This is
Noise in the background.
no secrets out here. This is
Noise in the background. 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 It's catching on like wildfire now.
The Good Guys' 5th annual Nostalgia Drag Races were so much fun, the editors at Rod just couldn't resist having a little fun with the footage. We hope you enjoyed it. Well, it's about time to wrap things up. The event calendar, pro line, and swap shop sections are still to come though, so stick around. And before we leave, we'd like to offer a big thanks to Jim Dillinger and his crew. Chris, Clint, Adam, and especially Shannon for letting us borrow this awesome Top Fuel Nostalgia dragster. Just having it here around the studio brought back memories to more than one producer, and we're going to hate to see it go. But we'll be back before you know it with everything that makes Rod what it is. The only video news magazine about street rodding, produced by street rodders, just for street rodders. I guess you simply call it TV My Way.
Proline is where you'll find the latest from all your favorite vendors and manufacturers. Watch for it in every issue. If your automotive interest goes beyond the world of street rodding, you'll be glad to hear that TV MyWay doesn't stop with Rod. Glass is the hot new video magazine featuring the true American sports car, the Corvette. Glass is the only video news magazine created by Corvette enthusiasts for Corvette enthusiasts, and the quality is every bit as high as every issue of Rod. Glass covers the major events across the country, profiles the key figures in the industry, brings you tech tips and shop tours with talented restorers, and features the hottest Corvettes we can find. A single issue is just $19.95, and a 9-issue subscription is only $89.95, half of the cover price, and comes with a free Glass t-shirt. To order, send check or money order to Butler Video Productions, Attention Glass, 14360 Southeast Eastgate Way, Bellevue, Washington, 98007. Or call our toll-free order line at 1-800-231-4959 and use your Visa or MasterCard. If you like Rod and like Corvettes, you'll love Glass. Welcome to the most innovative classifieds available to the street rod enthusiast, the Rod Swap Shop. if you want to get involved in these truly unique classifieds, send the producers of Rod a photograph or video still of any hot rod or rod-related item that you want to sell, trade, or purchase. You must include a text of 25 words or less, which includes your phone number and a description of the item. Your text will appear on the screen below your image as shown here. The cost of this truly unique classified is only $24.95 for a 3-issue run, and remember, if you are an inaugural subscriber, your first ad is free. So get involved in what's sure to become the most popular trading post in the industry, the Rod Swap Shop. Just send your information and payment to Butler Video Productions. Attention Rod, 14360 Southeast East Gateway, Bellevue, Washington, 98007. Here's some information for viewers interested in purchasing Rod. A single issue is only $19.95, but if you order now, you can receive 1 full year of Rod, 9 issues in all, for only $89.95. That's half of the cover price. With a subscription, you receive a Rod t-shirt and a certificate good for 1 free Swap Shop classified ad. So now is the time, and here's how to do it. Just enclose a check or money order and mail to Butler Video Productions, Attention Rod, 14360 Southeast East Gateway, Bellevue, Washington, 98007. And don't forget to enclose a t-shirt size of large, extra large, or extra extra large. To order by phone, use your Visa or MasterCard and call toll-free 1-800-231-4959 and ask for Rod.